All right, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. This is a new SEC podcast. We're going to give you our recap and our reactions and thoughts to the final two semifinal games. We're down to one football game. We saw Texas fight really hard. Ohio State won in that one in the Cotton Bowl. And we also saw in the Orange Bowl, Notre Dame edge out at the end to beat Penn State. What are our thoughts from this playoff Thursday and Friday?
Yeah, I think it was four good teams that finished. Anyone that wanted close games that didn't happen through the majority of the first, 8 games, other than the Arizona State-Texas one, finally got 2 good games. Even though it was a 14-point swing for the Texas-Ohio State game, close right up to the end. It almost was an instant classic. Notre Dame, Penn State, another close one too. So I think that they were pretty evenly matched across the board. To me already, I think even with this, Ohio State still looks super strong, but it's good football.
Yeah, no, they both were really close games. Like we were talking about before we recorded, the score of the Texas-Ohio State game is not an indicator of how close that game was. And the Penn State game was a great Thursday night game. Like I'm always a little bit weary about the game that is first whenever these leagues schedule things. For the NFL, it's usually the Texans who have the first playoff game. We're recording here on Saturday, so they're playing the Chargers for that. But the Penn State game, the Penn State Notre Dame game, which was the first game of the semifinal round, did not disappoint in Miami. Really strong defensive battle, and ultimately Notre Dame was able to get that interception and put themselves in a spot to get that field goal. For that kicker's family was really happy.
Oh, I'm sure. It felt like the vibe and the reaction of the game was two bad quarterbacks playing. Two bad quarterbacks making mistakes, but I think it's super fair to give credit on the other side that it's just two defenses playing good football. They made mistakes, but the contested passes that Aller threw up, like they could go either way if a defense isn't playing super solid. So it was a battle of defenses. I think really in both games, but with that one for sure, where the defenses held strong.
Yeah. And I got to echo your point again. Like you could sit there and look at it and say this was a mid-off between two okay quarterbacks, but it gives a discredit or disservice to what these defenses did. Like I think it was just really good defenses. Both of these defenses have NFL prospects on their teams. Like guys were going to be shaking hands with Goodell potentially in the first round. So like that speaks more to the defense and less what the quarterback play was, but overall it did look mid. Like I'm just going to go out there and say it. It was enough for Notre Dame to win, and they were able to do what they normally do on the ground. Couple big passing plays, to the running back for Notre Dame helped them kind of get that spark they needed. But it was mostly a battle won on the ground, especially for Penn State.
Penn State.
I think Singleton had 3 touchdowns, right? I want to say.
Yeah. And that's it. That's all they had. Was rushing the ball. That's what I meant. I meant Penn State rushing. It was just that's all they had. And that's a huge problem. When not a single receiver had a catch. Only tight ends and backs played.
I think I saw Keandre Lambert-Smith fire off a little suggestive tweet post game.
Probably missing him, honestly.
Yeah.
But that only had so much to do with the receivers. I think Drew Aller just coming into it, I thought he was going to be a little bit more consistent. Not asking him to do too much, but consistently being just a mid-manageable quarterback, and he just didn't do that. He didn't
contribute to winning the game. And that's where, like you said, it's hard to do that if you're not getting the ball to your wide receivers. It's like playing chess without the queen piece. You're not going to win.
It's super one-dimensional. I didn't look at it before the game, but I'd imagine his depth of target was super short. Just you're not stretching the field enough. It's making it tough for your team to do anything. All 4 quarterbacks in the playoffs right now aren't necessarily tasked with being a Heisman candidate, a do-it-all guy, the leader of the team to make all the plays. They just need to be serviceable and manage the game. And that's what Aller didn't necessarily do. I think even the penalties in the game made it not look as bad as it could have. The one that he threw in the fade to the end zone, I'll give him credit that he probably saw the hold, but the one that he threw up that was picked off and called for the pass interference, that was probably going to be a pick anyway.
Either way, yeah. And the corner, in my opinion on that call, didn't really disrupt the receiver that much. If you're going by the book, yes, it was a pass interference, but it didn't really,
He didn't really just, but
Yeah, it didn't
Yeah,
really disrupt the pass that much. I mean, Tyler Warren's massive, so
yeah.
um, I'm
So I
right
mean,
there with
it
you
could have been
there.
worse. It could have been worse.
What do you think was the best game of the weekend?
Yeah, I think Texas Ohio State was the better game of the weekend. I think it's because of the expectation of the game and how it actually played out. Like Ohio State was the favorite. Everyone thought that they were going to come in here and take care of business. Yeah, they covered the spread. The public still won a lot of money on them, but Texas performed a lot better than I think a lot of people were giving them credit for. So that was the better games watching it and be like, okay, maybe Texas is better than people are giving them credit for, or Ohio
Yeah.
State is more vulnerable than maybe the last two games they looked.
Absolutely. I
For.
mean, for everyone who watches our show, like our last preview, popped off over 600 views, and a lot of people were commenting that Ohio State was going to dominate in this game. And you're right, like they covered, but Texas was able to hold them to their lowest halftime, point total the entire playoff, right? I mean, and Tennessee gave up 21, and I mean, Oregon, they were getting boat raced 34-8 in the first half, right? Texas was in this game, and if it wasn't for a 75-yard or 70-yard screenplay with the last 30 seconds in the half, like it was going to be a 10-7 or 7-7 halftime game where Texas was very much in this game despite, being stifled by this Ohio State defense.
Yeah, the Ohio State defense was good at putting pressure on Quinn Ewers, and we can talk about that. But all in all, like Texas defensively kept them in the game. Like they were giving up enough yards to put Texas in a tough field position when they got on offense. They were keeping them off the board. So I mean, yeah, it would have been 7-7 at half. They wouldn't have given up that long play. And that's really the only play though that I feel like I can, say Texas defense like faltered for. Like giving up 21 points, you take that away, 14 points for this
Yep.
Ohio State team. Like that's really, really good. Even with
That's
that, it's
that's
still really, really good.
That's very, very solid. Not many teams in conference play for Ohio State were able to hold them to that many points. And it's like you said, right? Like I think a lot of people have talked about how strong Texas defense was, but the spread didn't indicate that. People believed that was going to be this close of a game, and a lot of people, myself included, were calling for Ohio State to really dominate in this game offensively. And with what Texas defense was able to do to lock up Jeremiah Smith, that played a huge role in limiting what they were able to do offensively.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one catch, 3 yards. Like we talked about it
Yeah.
before. There's just too many people, too many other guys on that team that can make plays, both running backs. The other receivers were getting often behind the linebackers. So they were finding other ways to do it. They weren't scoring as much, but they were still pushing the field down, taking opportunities away from Texas, forcing them to drive long fields. The defense did what they needed to do. I mean, shutting down Jeremiah Smith was one of the tasks that they needed to do. I'm not just, I don't want to sit here and just, credit Texas. I mean, they did lose the game. And
I was
on
going
the
to say,
flip side of the ball is where I have a lot of criticism for Texas is offensively.
Let's get into that, because I was going to ask you, like, if I'm a Texas fan and I'm looking at this game, I'm wondering, where did we lose this game? So to you, where do you feel like Texas lost this game?
So Texas loses games when they don't run the ball effectively. And it's such like a basic answer. They've been held under 100 yards 4 times this season. They're 1-3 in games when they're held under 100 rushing yards. And it's not like they're not moving the ball offensively in those same games. The 2 Georgia games, this game, and then the Arizona State game was the one that they won. They were still moving the ball in the air. They just didn't establish the run. And this one, they couldn't do it. And it hurt them often because they sucked in short yardage situations. I mean, to start out the game, it was 4th and 3, and they have to throw the ball. They don't feel comfortable getting 3 yards with their backs.
Right.
You don't feel comfortable getting 1 yard on the goal line with your running back up the gut. Like you're trying to get cute because you don't trust your run game.
Yeah.
And against Ohio State, I get it. It's a tough thing to do because they're so good against it, but you can't shy away from it. I mean, Sark said it. I can't remember what game he said it in. I think it was the first half of the SEC championship where he was like, he's like, I just need to commit to the run. Like we do it and then we shy away from it because it's not working. You just got to commit to it.
Right.
But it's the right side of the O-line, I think, was giving them just trouble in doing anything really.
Yeah, and that was the side where I think I remember they were saying the tackle that got hurt in the first round of the playoffs was coming back off of a knee sprain, I want to say, and I think he went out for a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Pass pro, this Texas O line for the most part is pretty good. They had some trouble in this game. I think that played a role. in them not being successful to win the game, right? Like drives getting stopped affected their third down percentage when it comes to converting. And Quinn has shown us he's really a pure pocket passer. Like he's more or less like he needs to stay in the pocket to be in a good pocket to feel most comfortable to throw effectively downfield.
Yeah, and it was a huge difference between the two quarterbacks because Texas pass rush is just as good as Ohio State's, honestly. Like they're both good pass rushing teams. Texas, what they tried to do was just outmuscle it and hopefully get the ball off faster. What Ohio State did is they swung the pocket to each side and, kind of alleviated the pressure that way. So, that's a huge piece that they were able to do. You have Quinn Ewers, who isn't that good at doing that. So you don't have that in your arsenal of being able to use mobility. Will Howard's not super mobile, but he's mobile enough to swing the pocket.
He's definitely, I would put Will Howard in the mobile category though. I would say he's a mobile quarterback. He's probably giving you like a 81 overall speed in college football 25.
Yeah, he's he'll be the least mobile of the two in the championship game. Like Riley Leonard, I think does more on the ground. It could be just that they don't ask him to do it.
No, Riley, that's another discussion. Yes.
Another
Riley
level
Leonard
of mobility.
Is more mobile. Riley Leonard is more mobile than Will Howard. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Will Howard's a better passer than Riley Leonard.
Yeah. Yeah. So either way, it's just something that they weren't able to do. And it's when you get pressure on Quinn Ewers, we said it before the game, we said it throughout the season, he's really just not good under pressure. He kind of freezes up. He was pressured, I think, over 40% of his dropbacks. 18 dropbacks where he was pressured, only 5 completions on 18 dropbacks. He just kind of freezes up. We saw him fall into his O-line a couple times and just not be able to make plays. It's
like either you got to get the ball away or you need to get it in someone's hands, or get out of the pocket. Yeah, like when he ran into his guard, I want to say, and just kind of took the sack. You don't love to see that.
No,
and it's just tough.
In slow-mo, it's easy for us, to couch criticize, but there are guys open when those things are breaking down, when those plays are breaking down. And he's just unable to see it in the face of pressure. Put the ball on the ground on the one that ended the game, for the most part, ended the game. Just when he's pressured, it's just not as solid. So that's where I see that they struggle, is because of running the ball. When you can't run the ball effectively, then you kind of know what's coming. When they know what's coming, you're getting pressure on the pass game. They shut them down. I mean, Ohio State's red zone defense is solid, and they continue that trend. Other than Ohio State, Texas, and Army, no one's really close to a red zone defense like that. So we knew it was going to be a big point of contention, and Ohio State showed it there at the end.
They did. And in place of really either team's or at least the Texas wide receivers going off, we saw Jaden Blue get 2 touchdowns. So that helped him stay in the game. That kind of was like their rushing game. His receiving contributions, 59 yards, with Contravian Wisner's rushing contributions got them a little bit over 100 yards, but it's not the same as, dominating the trenches and controlling the tempo of the game and being able to prove that you can run the ball. I'm in full agreement with you. That was kind of the main reason they lost. It wasn't the defense. I'd give the defense an A. I would give the secondary an A for the most part. It was the offense that was hovering in that B- range, which is good to win most games, not this one. Do you feel like we're giving enough credit to Will Howard? Like is Will Howard respected enough for his abilities, or not, because Ohio State has such a rich tradition of quarterbacks where he objectively looks like the worst of those?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think with the team that he has around him, it's easy to point at everybody else and give everybody else the credit. But I think, from some of the Ohio State quarterbacks of past years that have really just kind of been screen merchants or throwing short passes for the most part, he was slinging it a little bit out there. I mean, he has good receivers. He's finding them in space. He had a couple of really good tight window throws across the middle. So I think, he should get more credit than maybe he's given. Sometimes I don't know. People just like to hate on him a little bit. I do too. I do too.
I'm just making conversation, right? I do I appreciate college football. I'm someone who just loves to talk about it with you and everybody. And I like the SEC. I love the SEC. I love talking about other conferences too. I respect that. I respect transfer stories like his, where you go from a school like Kansas State and transfer up and ball out. I have a lot of respect for that. He's not as good as CJ Stroud or Dwayne Haskins or, Carl Jones. He won a championship for them, but he's done a lot for the program, and it's surprising that he's not talked about as much, given he's the quarterback for Ohio State, and they are running a tight ship for the most part over there. So
yeah, a lot of weapons, So I think it's easy to just not discredit it, but to chalk it up to that. So I mean, but he played great. He played great, and he won the quarterback battle of that game.
There's not many teams, not many quarterbacks have 2 NFL running backs behind them. I think that also probably takes away from his shine. It's like, all right, like push comes to shove, like you want Judkins, you want Henderson.
Yeah. It was like the one he put the perfect ball out there. It should have been the first touchdown given up by Jahdae Barron on the season. That was a drop, in the red zone. And it's like, you know what, forget it. We'll just run it in with Quinshon Judkins. So it's like, you have that. You don't have to throw the ball in some of these situations. So I saw some people online saying that Quinn Ewers was the 3rd best quarterback who took snaps in the game. So I guess I can bring up the question, like, were you surprised that Arch Manning didn't play, didn't come in the game at when Quinn Ewers, he wasn't struggling to the point of like, we got to get this guy out of here. But when things weren't working out, were you surprised that they didn't try something different?
I was very surprised. I feel like when you saw that, I want to say 10 or 16-yard rush, we talked about it before, like the energy that Arch brings coming on the field. I think it's a little bit him being a backup. I think it's also the fact that he's a Manning. That energy goes a long way. I would have used him more. Sometimes throughout the season, I wonder if Sark avoided putting in Arch just to avoid that quarterback controversy discussion.
Yeah.
Because it's like you can look at it on one side and say, okay, if I keep putting in Arch, fans will call for him. But you could also look at the other side and say, hey, look, I have like 2 SEC starting quarterbacks in my quarterback room right now. Why not use both? So I was surprised.
Yeah, I was surprised. Both effectively. Like there's teams that have done it. There's teams that do it. They're not, the caliber of teams that are making playoffs, but there's teams that are 100% doing it. Georgia Tech was one this season that ran 2 quarterbacks often and played well with 2 quarterbacks.
You can go pistol. You can go pistol. You can do option with Arch, and Arch can throw too. So it's like, why not?
The pistol is a lot more threatening with Arch than the pistol with Quinn. On that third and goal or 2nd and goal, whenever it was at the end of the game. Like you're running a pistol with him, the quarterback, the QB power, the run with him isn't a threat. So you should be taking snaps under center, punching up the gut. But if you had Arch and you had established that he's able to get out of that and run, then the toss looks more effective because you got guys coming on the edge in instead of just, following the ball.
Exactly.
It's clear that the running back was getting the ball on that play.
Yeah. It has to be like, it would literally have to be like a defensive end just purely crashing where it creates a scenario for Quinn to go on the outside. Like he's not going to do that. Like they know it's going to be, they're going to do contain out here. They're going to make sure that the inside's packed. It's not a good situation when it comes to Quinn's rushing abilities. I did respect that run he had on that big 3rd down, and it's like you see these glimpses. You see these glimpses of a special player. I think his expectations are super lofty, making the playoffs last year, being the Texas quarterback, being one of the first few like $1 million NIL quarterbacks when he signed at Ohio State, and then changed the program at Texas. I've been seeing the question kind of floated around online, like what is the legacy of Quinn Ewers to you for Texas?
Yeah, I think his legacy has been solid. I mean, he's elevated the team from what they were before he got there to what they are now. That happened with a lot of other players and a lot of money and good coaching. So it's not, I don't give him full credit for that because I think through his injuries, through just the team that's been built around him, it's not him alone. And it's been a lot of other guys doing it. But there's nothing wrong with being the semifinal playoff team 2 years in a row. Like it's either all or nothing. And it is fair to have the expectations. I do think that it's also fair to criticize his play.
Yes.
But with the caveat, if he does decide to come back to college football next year, I don't think it'll be with Texas. I think that they're probably ready to make the move on just because he's a manageable quarterback. I don't know what his superpower is. I don't know what his high stat is, what he's necessarily thriving in. He's not mobile. He's not super mobile. He doesn't have like the best arm, the best reach. He's not super good under pressure. He's just a good quarterback, but he's not a great quarterback. So, he was a quarterback at a point in time for Texas. That's kind of, I think, his legacy during a period where they were pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I think, Texas had a lot of quarterbacks come to the program, the Colt McCoys, the Vince Youngs, the Sam Ellingers. I don't know the full extensive history of the Texas quarterbacks, but I would imagine he's in the top 3 discussion. Ellinger was able to win a New Year's Six game when he crowned that Texas was back. But
Yeah.
Quinn came in along with the other pieces to this, amazing ship they're running now that players are getting paid, as Connor Stallion said, above the table. I love that vernacular. Yeah. I think Quinn's legacy is one that restored the program, played a key part in representing the program. I think he's a good look for Texas, just the type of player he is and representing his home state. And I think you're right. Like it's like I sometimes I flutter between like I expect more out of you versus look how much you've done for the program. And I think it's perfectly okay to say we are grateful. You've done a lot. The bar keeps raising. And that's okay to be critical as the bar raises, as long as it's respectful, I would say. And it's coming from a place of, like I respect everything he's done, beating A&M, beating Alabama in Alabama last season, getting to 2 conference championships, winning one of those. A lot to be said there for what he did for the program and staying all these years. He didn't leave when they picked up Manning, right? The last piece I would touch on is the part you talked about with where does he go from here? I think in this college football landscape, it would be really hard to be a 3-year starting quarterback or more that has NFL aspirations and you're at a good program. Like, I don't know what quarterback is going to go to a school and sit behind someone for 3 years. So as a school, you have to decide, okay, either I'm riding with this guy for 3 years or he has 2 years to prove himself and we're going to go with our backup because like we can't lose our future banking on the right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know if it's as much like Quinn's abilities as more of this is how college football is right now.
Yeah, I feel you. I mean, it's the way college football is. It's all a political game within your own team of who you play and whatever. So, at this point, the future and now for Texas going forward will be Arch Manning. So for Quinn Ewers in the future, it's like, do you follow the path of all the quarterbacks who do one more year and go play at Oregon? Or do you, who
Right.
wants them?
Yeah. And it's tough because a lot of schools have already gotten their guys, but like on the flip side, it's like you're Kansas State. You let Will Howard walk, or Will Howard knew there's a bag out there. You were going to lose Avery Johnson if you didn't let him walk. But now, do you feel like you lost a championship opportunity, or is it just like this is just the way that it is right now, where you have to let guys walk to keep
I think
your blue chips?
Every player just has to be taken into the context of the team because nobody's by themselves. And Will Howard on Kansas State this year, they could have looked worse than the way Kansas State looks this year.
Yeah.
Because I think Kyle McCord played great this season too. Like, I don't know, Ohio State could have been even better with him at quarterback. It's just too hard to say in the singular player picture of who's better. So you just got to get who you get, hope you made the right decision. And as long as you get to this point in the season, I think Texas, you got to this point in the season, that's pretty good. Be happy that you made it this far, your first year in the SEC. And then on the other side, Ohio State, like we talked a lot about Texas, SEC show, but a lot of credit to Ohio State because this is a really good team. They won by 2 scores, covered. They're big favorites, 9.5 favorites going into the game, next week and 9 days from now on Saturday. And I think that they're going to win a championship. So what they did in this game, Texas was impressive. I think Ohio State was equally impressive. I was impressed by both teams and what they were able to do. I thought it was just an impressive game. Not as much on the other side. So I like Ohio State as an early favorite in the upcoming game. Me and probably everyone else. So
yeah. No, I think that that's kind of where my head's at. Like, major respect to Texas, great season. I just spent 2 minutes talking about how good Quinn was and what he's done for the program, and a lot of respect to Ohio State for all the Ohio State people who tune in to SEC media to hear what we think about Ohio State and how good they are. Like, they played really well. This is a byproduct of the new playoff. You can drop 2 games and have an opportunity to beat 2 SEC schools and beat the best team in your conference, dominantly for the first 2 rounds. Like, a lot of respect for Ryan Day. They're trying to finish the job here in Atlanta. They really played well. We touched a little bit on the Penn State game. And any final thoughts you had on Penn State and Notre Dame, it feels like it's the second game. It's kind of like,
Yeah, and you play the guy in front of you. If you're Notre Dame, you played a Penn State team that was extremely one-dimensional in that game. I think it's partially because of what you're giving them. Notre Dame wasn't giving them their receivers, so they couldn't do it. But on the other half, it just hasn't been the way that Penn State has played. You're coming into a game now after this that's a non-one-dimensional team with Ohio State. So, I'm trying to take some takeaways from Penn State, Notre Dame, and it's that, Notre Dame, the defense was good. They did what they needed to do. I'm not sure that they did what they needed to do well enough from the rushing side to carry over into this next game, and feel super confident in them. What Penn State was able to do from a rushing standpoint. But the table set, Notre Dame, Ohio State, it'll be good.
Yeah, this should be good. This is the closest they'll be to Big Ten conference play here. It's be their third Big Ten conference team they're playing. They're pocketing that $20 million for them from the CFP winning earnings for each round or so. But this will be their third Big Ten team. They played their passive ACC schedule this season when it comes to their partial contract. None of that has anything to do with the fact that they're playing on the 20th on that Monday. Yeah. I think Notre Dame has a good chance in this game. When we look at these two teams and what it takes, this will probably be like our last question, like what it takes to win this game. Early look. Continue, stop, go. Mm-hmm. What should they continue? What should Ohio State continue? What should Ohio State stop? And what should Ohio State look to improve upon?
Yeah, I think for me, for Ohio State, you need to continue the ground attack. You got the two guys, bring them in. It's been working really, really well. Even when the receivers aren't doing what they need to do, you have that 1-2 punch. Even in the passing game, we saw the Travion Henderson touchdown. So continue that. I think from a starting standpoint, maybe not a full start. It's a continuation of this game and not others, but just getting everyone involved. I love what they were doing with that. So maybe not a full start, but getting other guys involved, and it worked really, really well. I think it caught Texas off guard for the most part. So, for what they should stop doing, it's tough to say for Ohio State because right now everything's going smooth.
Good, right?
I'm not sure what to stop from this game to the next game, what to stop. So going into this one, Ohio State least penalized team of the four, only giving about 19 yards in penalties in the playoffs. Total, they gave up 75 yards in this game. A lot of self-inflicted injuries, especially on offense. Anytime that they got going, they kept setting themselves back with a hold. They had a Travion Henderson, hitting the guy in the face mask. They had a couple false starts. So stop self-inflicted injury penalties.
Yeah.
You're hurting yourself. It's something that they don't do often. They did in that one game. I think that it'll be a point of focus for them over the next week and a half to get ready for this one is the discipline.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's like the only thing you can really point to. Like offenses looked like an A+. I would give them an A this game. I think I'd give them an A+ the rest of the playoffs, right? Okay. The defense has been phenomenal. They've made stops when it mattered. There's an opportunity for them to just continue strong defensive play. Try to find more opportunities to continue to get turnovers. That was a big part of this game, change momentum. Stop for Ohio State. It's hard. Like, I think it's just penalties. Like that was really just last game. They've been playing good football. Like they're doing the assignment. And those are probably the things I would say from a continue and stop standpoint for Ohio State. And how about for Notre Dame? Where do you feel like, what are some areas they should look to continue and stop and improve to have a shot to take down this heavy favorited Ohio State team?
Yeah, I think continue finding these guys. Jaden Greathouse had a great game. It's kind of a coming out party for him and over 100 yards in that one. It's going to be a lot tougher against this Ohio State team, but it's good to see this Notre Dame team passing the ball really, really well. Over 250 yards on the day. For Riley Leonard, in the back quarterback coming in as well. So continue finding guys like him and continue moving the ball in the air. I think it's a good addition to what you can do on the ground if that's not working like it wasn't last week. From a stop standpoint, it's tough to say in particular. Trying to think of a good one. You don't necessarily need to be trusting Riley Leonard too much on the ground in this game. it was something that didn't necessarily work against Penn State too often. It was able to use situationally. It's going to be very, very hard to do here. Ohio State controls the edges very, very well. You're going to have a hard time doing that. So I wouldn't say full stop, but it's not going to come through him on the ground. I don't think that's going to be the way that you beat this Ohio State team. So
and I think that lends to a good improve, which is improve your usage of Riley Leonard in the air. Like this Ohio State defense, like you said, covers the edge as well. They have better edge speed than the Armies and the Navies and some of these other teams are playing. And that's not to take anything away from Georgia, who had to face Riley Leonard as well. But right now, with the defense Ohio State's playing, I think from an improved perspective, to have a chance to win this game, you just do a little bit more in the air to keep Ohio State honest when it comes to their rushing attack for Notre Dame. Like we know Notre Dame's going to run. Like it's going to happen. If you can improve your passing side, I think that's a good part to focus on. Continue. Their brands could be running. Like in the first half, they were kind of locked down in Georgia or against Penn State, but they didn't sway away from it. They just kept going at it, and then were able to kind of have some big breaks with Jeremiah Love having that great touchdown run. So that would be my continue. From a stop perspective, it's hard to say for Notre Dame. I think that they're doing a lot of the right things right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's teams that are they're playing winning football. So I mean, you don't need to
They've won 13 straight games. Like it's like whatever you tell us to stop doing. Like
we're doing what we need to do, and all credit to them for that. So it'll be a good game on the 20th in Atlanta. I'm early favorite is Ohio State. We're going to continue to kind of break it down. So we're going to have that episode breaking down the game more in depth. And I think maybe between now and then have some other realizations where I'll feel more confident about Notre Dame. But we'll see what happens in the meantime.
We'll see. You and Josh Pate, are not Notre Dame believers. Are not as big of believers as the Christ following folk of Notre Dame. So thank you for tuning in. We're going to give you guys some season recaps and grades for some of these SEC teams. We'll also do a preview of the national championship from your favorite new SEC podcast co-host here or host here. So I'm Randall Jr. We've got Hunter Ziesman here, and thank you for tuning in.
See you.